Welcome to the University of Coruscant. As part of your enrollment here, you have access to the attached HoloNet recording. You've selected a lecture by Dr. Sunny Ravencourt on Bounty Hunters. You've selected a lecture by Dr. Sunny Ravencourt on Jango Fett. If you have any questions about this lecture or wish to contact us, please visit universityofcoruscant.com.
Hello, students. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that this semester has been rough. Sure, lessons that I've submitted for your education on the HoloNet have been superb, but that is simply because I'm incapable of not being entertaining and inspirational. No, this semester has been rough on me. And my TA, Rob.
Again, it's Todd, sir.
I know, it's tough on all of us. Being on the run for a debt that I owe my Bothan associate has been difficult, but not all is lost. As a matter of fact, things have really turned around. For every lecture I send back to the university, they have been contractually obligated to give me a paycheck. Finally, I have enough to pay off that bounty and get back to Coruscant. And that sound that you hear, that, my students, is the sound of Canto Bight, the greatest entertainment city in the galaxy. Believe it or not, this was Bob's idea. No, don't worry, I'm not gonna blow all my money in a Canto Bight chance machine. I just think that it's time that I reward myself and Bob with a night out. Bob?
Todd.
Bob, here's 100 credits. I know you're technically unpaid, but you nearly died a couple times, so I think that's worth something.
Yes. This makes it all worthwhile.
Well, I'm just glad you appreciate it. Now, get out of here and go have some fun, you big fish. Barkeep?
What'll it be? Got a deal on a hermit calf for you. Come steaming in a white Carillion mug.
A hermit calf. I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb and say that that's made for hermits and not from hermits, right? Or maybe it's made by hermits. Do you have any hermits back there? You know, it doesn't matter. Does it have any alcohol?
Enough to make a Jawa start to lose layers. If you're still standing after you buy 3 of them, you get to keep the mug. By the way, that lady over there has been eyeing you since you got in. I'm going to send her over.
Well, this night just got better. I wonder which one of my holodramas sure oh, blasted. It's Rishi.
Hey, bro.
Hi, Rishi. Was Hoth not to your taste?
Is that where I was? I remember Burning Droid on Tatooine. At least I think it was Tatooine. It was hot and there were like 4 suns.
Well, that does track depending on what you were drinking.
Where's Tim?
Oh, he's off enjoying life, which is what you should be doing. As a matter of fact, he was just mentioning how much he enjoyed meeting you the last time. Why don't you go try to find him? Probably best to start in the fountains. This is the first place for a while that poor Mon Cal has seen water. He might be in them.
Okay, bye.
Well, despite me having enough to pay the bounty, I think it's probably prudent to get another lecture on the books, so let's do this. Bounty hunters have always had a somewhat iconic feel to them. They live in the fringes. They do jobs that most find distasteful, and one of their core tenets is usually that once the job is done, you don't ask questions about what comes afterwards. This doesn't sit well with most people. However, despite all of this, they are very often romanticized. Younglings everywhere dream of the opportunity to make their way in the galaxy armed with only the sharpness of their wit and the speed of their drawing hand. Go wherever you want, do whatever you want. Live outside the law and get paid for it. The gunslinger. And if I were to ever describe a gunslinger, it would start and end with the subject of this lecture, Jango Fett. Now, before we really get into Jango Fett, we need to talk about a larger subject here, and that is Mandalorians. Mandalorians have a very complicated and confusing history. Mandalore is a planet, but not everyone from there is considered a Mandalorian, and some that are not from there are definitely Mandalorians. Some say that Mandalorian is a creed and not a race at all. I could be a Mandalorian if I worked at it hard enough and lived by their ways. Now, I would never do that, of course, because why would I want to wear a helmet over this face? But that's not really the point. The point is that Mandalorians are really hard to pin down. There are so few of them now that they've really gone from history to legend to myth at this point. This was not always the case, quite the opposite. Mandalorians have one of the bloodiest histories of any group in the galaxy. They were at their strongest somewhere around 4,000 to 6,000 years BBY, and their influence expanded to a considerable part of the galaxy known as Mandalorian space. I know that this isn't a Mandalorian lecture, but this is important, so stick with me. It's important because their biggest conflicts were with the Jedi, representing a republic that wasn't too hot on this warring faction taking over a bunch of their territory. The Jedi and the Mandalorians fought fiercely for a very, very long time. So long that virtually all of the armor and weaponry of a Mandalorian is derived from years of adapting to fight Jedi. They, maybe more than any other faction in galactic history, are Jedi killers. Unfortunately, killing Jedi is really hard, and they lost the war so definitively that the home planet of Mandalore was more or less destroyed. To live there now, you need a hermetically sealed dome. But if you spend 1,000 years fighting Jedi, well, you get a reputation as a pretty spectacular warrior race. So what does this have to do with Jango Fett? Well, Mandalorians took a significant hit to their power and territory. During the Clone Wars, there was still Mandalorian houses vying for power, so at that time you could find Mandalorians in decently large groups. As with any society that has factions vying for power, they were constantly fighting, which really continued to whittle down their numbers, and so the legend started to grow. Incidentally, this was the time of Jango Fett. Now, history is really fuzzy here, but I think this is where you started to get the Mandalorian is a creed and not a race thing. Mandalore was unlivable, numbers were down, it was time to let the philosophy take over a little bit. Be a little bit more flexible with recruiting, and after the time of Jango, it gets even worse. When the Clone Wars end, the Galactic Empire takes over and institutes what's known as the Great Purge. That does not sound good. It's basically a Mandalorian genocide. The Galactic Empire isn't very long-lived, but they sure do put the nail in the coffin of Mandalorians while they could. After that, Mandalorians really do turn into a myth. They pop up here and there. You never really know what you're getting when you hear their stories, but the fear and awe of them remains, and that is impressive. Now let's go back to Jango. Jango Fett may or may not have been a Mandalorian, but it's almost irrelevant in my opinion. He looked like a Mando, he fought like a Mando, and he was a bounty hunter, which might as well have been a job invented by Mandalorians because they were just fabulous at it. The look is unmistakable. Jango was what some would call a medium armor Mandalorian. He had metal plates on his thighs, shins, and boots, along with chest and shoulders. He had the absolutely iconic T-shaped visor helmet, which you never see a Mandalorian without. Just as important was the wrist gauntlets with all the tools and gadgets. And a jetpack, because, well, jetpack. So what if whatever was left of the Mandalorian government didn't think this guy was a Mandalorian? I mean, look at this guy. Are you gonna tell him no? Remember last semester when I was still teaching in the Grand Lecture Hall? Yeah, that was nice. Well, I had a lecture on bounty hunter weaponry. And take everything that I said and just put it on Jango Fett. The armor that I was describing was Boba Fett's, and he modeled his whole rig, with a few minor exceptions, off dear old dad Jango Fett. And now we have to talk about cloning. Man, this is really a Lothcat hole already. Okay, I'm gonna be hilariously brief on this, but when the Galactic Republic made an army, they made it from clones. The clones were made on a planet called Kamino, but you can't just clone something from nothing, you need a model. Well, the model for literally the entire clone army that fought the famous Clone Wars was one bounty hunter, Jango Fett. So, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of clones fighting this war, and every single one of them looks exactly like Jango Fett under his helmet. At that time, Jango Fett was already a very famous and successful bounty hunter. So good that he attracted the attention of a Sith named Darth Tyrannus. Now remember, everyone thought that the Sith were extinct, so I wonder what the level of surprise was when Tyrannus recruited Fett to go to Kamino and be holocopied. I sometimes wonder if Tyrannus even told Fett that he was a Sith. That was a pretty big secret, given that nobody had seen a Sith in 1,000 years. Regardless, Jango Fett says yes with one condition. clones were typically given genetic modifications to let them grow faster than a normal human. Fett demanded an unaltered clone to raise as his own. He wanted a boy. The deal was made, the clone army was made, and Jango Fett now had a bouncing baby boy to raise as his own. He named him Boba. Now, Jango was supposed to stay on Kamino, but you just can't keep a good bounty hunter down. He got out and did jobs anyway, flying his ship Slave One around the galaxy and teaching young Boba how the game is played. Jango had a couple of unique things that Boba never really adopted, though. Remember how I called Jango a gunslinger? Well, he carried 2 matching Westar 34 blaster pistols with hollowed-out grips in holsters on his hips, and man, could he swing 'em. He was fast as lightning and deadly. Rumor has it that he took out a massive reek with just one shot quick drawn from his hip, and that is the kind of legend that I just refuse to let die. He also had all sorts of cool exotics, like a Kaminoan saber dart, which could reportedly be fired with all sorts of toxins on board, accurate way farther than a normal dart launcher. You can start to see where Boba Fett got that toolbox mentality with his gear. Well, Jango unfortunately didn't get to raise Boba Fett to adulthood. His life was tragically cut short by the Jedi. And that's actually a pun. You see, Jango Fett wasn't fighting on the side of the clones. He was working with the Sith Lord Count Dooku, who was leading the Separatists. As if he needed any more reason to hate the Jedi. Well, after a few dust-ups with said Jedi, he met his match against a legend, and that would be Jedi Master and Council member Mace Windu. Remember that pun about his life being cut short? Well, Windu took Jango Fett's helmet off for him, with his head inside, right in front of Jango's son and immediate lifelong Jedi hater, Boba Fett. So that's Jango Fett. His biggest contribution to the galaxy was not his bounty hunting, not by a long shot, which is really a shame because by all accounts, he was fantastic. Now, his legacy was being the model for an entire army made of clones of himself, which set the galaxy spiraling off in a direction that would take about 50 years to correct, and leaving a legacy of training, some cool gear, and a great fire spray ship to his son who would, in my opinion, surpass dear old dad to become the greatest bounty hunter of all time. Well, finally one of you bounty hunters caught up with me. Well, guess what, friend? I have all the credits for our Both and Associate right here. Just hold out your communicator pad and I'll transfer the credits and then we can all be on our way. Just let me punch in the transfer account here and, okay, let me punch in the transfer account here and, okay, let me, really though, the money is supposed to be here. Oh wait, look, there's an account history. See? Deposit, withdraw. For additional repairs to the Grand Lecture Hall. Oh no. I really don't think that's necessary. I mean, do we really have to do this? Again, I don't think the binders are necessary here. Rishi? You just killed that bounty hunter!
The name is Vasala Voss. I'm private security hired by the University of Coruscant to protect their investment, which I cannot believe is actually you. I've been following you for weeks now. We need to leave this casino immediately.
Wow. So you... Weeks? Is this guy on the floor the only bounty hunter here?
Right now he is.
Then I'm gonna need another drink. 2 more and I get to keep the mug though. Barkeep?
This concludes your selected lecture from the University of Coruscant. For all questions or to contact us, please visit universityofcoruscant.com.
Hi, this is Dr. Sunny Ravencourt and the legal droids behind me. No, I'm not gonna say your names. They want me to remind you that if you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and leave a review or a comment. It helps us out tremendously, and it allows the university to continue to provide you the best in Star Wars history. Are you going to pay me for another take? Well, then I'm not going to do one.